There's a whole lot going on over in the UK. A bunch of stuff's happening. But how do we find hope through it all? And I hear this a lot, that the UK is about 7 years ahead of the United States. I've heard that about Canada as well. What do we need to do as Christians? We're going to find out all this and more in Self-Evident Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the Self-Evident Podcast, the only Self-Evident podcast that's worth listening to. I'm kidding. There's other podcasts, I'm sure, that are named Self-Evident, but I just wanted to say that finally. We's official. Guys, welcome. You got Massey, you got Mike. I know he's doing this stuff, but yeah.
Too far.
There's this, you know, all that. It's just all the bugs that we've got in all of this. You know what I mean? So, guys, go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can find out more information about what we're doing, where we're traveling next. We've got a lot going on. September, we're going to Texas. October, we're going to North Carolina and I think Tennessee. So we got a lot going on. We made a statement yesterday and the day before about an announcement, and you guys want to check out that video on our social media accounts. There's just Self-Evident is going into gear number 5 or 6. I kind of feel like it's gear 5. I think there's still one more gear the Lord wants us to get to, but right now we just shifted into a whole new season where we're stepping in full-time, fully to do this. Now, I want to explain that because I didn't really get a chance to explain it really fast. I've been full-time with Self-Evident, but I was also doing a full-time ministry with the church. I was doing the associate pastor role. So I was only able to travel so much and do so many things where I couldn't be. So Mike Sonnebelt came on full-time. Carrie's been on full-time. My wife. We've got some other employees that do some part-time work for us. But now where it's like the vision is here to carry this forward. So you guys want to go on to theselfevidenttruth.com. We have a goal this month to hit. We're raising $30,000. We've already had a couple of people sign up for monthly, which is awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I'll tell you about who they are later. But it's been awesome, the response. We're getting a lot of cool shares and things like that on social media. But guys, if you can support us, please just do that. You know, and we don't beg for stuff. We just ask. And the Lord says, ask and you shall receive. And so, like, we've sown into many people. We're just asking you guys to, if you can, sow financially and get us out there to more people so we can sow into them too. So we love you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've got a lot to cover on this podcast, a whole lot to cover, mainly with what's happening in the UK, in Europa, Fortress Europa. And what there's so much going on over there that you're seeing a whole lot of protests now. But now conservatives are the Christians are standing up too. There's just a whole lot of things going on over there, but there's a lot of riots and things like that happening.
Yeah.
So
I've been watching this really close, and a lot of our listeners, viewers, maybe it's not something that you've really paid attention to a whole lot, but I think it's important. And Massey and I have had one or two conversations about this, and there's another aspect we'll cover at a later date about this whole thing. But I think it's really important because guess what, America? Pay attention. Pay attention. There is egregious stuff going on in the UK, and we've got to know about what's going on because it's the MO. I don't like using the word agenda, but there's an agenda here, and we've got to be privy to it. We've got to be savvy on all of this. So what kicked everything off? There was a 17-year-old boy, Axel Ruda Cubana. That's a name.
That's a name.
That's a name.
You botched that name.
No, he didn't.
No, I think I got it.
Did you?
Yeah, Ruda Cabana.
So
No, it sounded like he botched it.
yeah. Judgment.
yeah.
Judgment. So what happened was this 17-year-old boy goes into a little girl's Taylor Swift dance class, and tragically, I don't even know the word I want to use for the censorship overlords, but ends the life of 3 of them, and of course injures like 8 to 10 more. And this sparked massive protests. And of course, immediately it was racist far-right protesters are tearing apart
That's
the
it.
country because and what the government said was, oh, it was misinformation online of he was a Muslim immigrant who was illegally there, and so therefore that's why all the far-righters are popping off. Let's go ahead and run clip one. Just to warn you, Isaiah, before you play it, check the volume, because the last time I did this with those settings, the volume was like, wow. So you may want to turn it down a little bit
Just a skosh.
on the computer. I don't know if you can, on those scenes, you can down the volume.
I don't think so.
No? Okay. But we're going to go to clip one. And I do have to preface this. When I was doing research and pulling stuff, I found that there was somebody else who pulled the videos that I wanted anyways. So credit goes out to Sargon of Akkad. One of his videos, he had a bunch of clips in there. I was like, I'll take his and give him credit. So I will let you know, you'll see his moniker. By all means, go check out Sargon of Akkad. The guy does great work in terms of what's going on in the UK and the overall movement. Very philosophy minded, very historically minded, and you get some great takes. He also runs podcasts called The Lotus Eaters. They do news, commentary, that kind of thing. They do British stuff. They also do global, but shout out to them. Great work. Love what they do. Anyways, are we ready? All right, let's go ahead and go with clip one. So it's showing this one. I cut the audio. It's showing the damage. This is really a montage of the protesters. Want to call them rioters? Sure. And one of the things they did was they attacked a hotel that a bunch of migrants were in, and did damage to that. You'll see the people they're Russian, they're marching, that kind of thing. So what did that end up sparking? It ended up sparking a retaliation. Let's go ahead and go to clip two. This one also. I want you to just notice something, and just look. And this gets into what we're going to talk about especially. Go ahead and run clip two. This is important to watch. So this is a massive group of Muslims that immediately responded with marching. Now, mind you, they were chanting Allahu Akbar the whole time. They were showing dominant presence, and this was going on across the country. This wasn't just this one spot. Massive numbers, and there were roving gangs. Let's go to clip three. Clip three shows roving gangs.
This took the form of large numbers of armed, black-clad,
Sargon
Palestine-waving
says.
pseudo-paramilitaries who took to the streets to hunt down English lads and beat them senseless.
Right now, guys are obviously coming over to the pub and showing dominance, asserting dominance over everybody, you know what I mean?
Did you hear that? That Muslim youth said, we're going over to the pub to show dominance. Show dominance. And this is something that we may touch on in a little bit, but you have to understand, Islam is not a cultural religion of
Peace.
submit, peace, assimilation. They're not. You can call me racist all you want.
They're not, though.
They're not,
They
though.
never have shown themselves to be.
It has always been conquest and dominance.
Yeah, they just do it in the forms of I forget what it's called, but there's like this lying tactic that they can do. It's called taqiyya, I think it is, or something like that. Where it's like they literally present themselves as angels of light. We're just here for submission and blah blah blah. But dude, historically, you go to any major civilization with a Muslim population and they say those are just the far extremists. No, I don't think so. Like keeping your women on hijabs and all that stuff, like not letting your women do anything. It's like that's really weird, bro.
Right. And let's put it this way. Credit to Islam, to Muslims. They have no interest in compromising their religion or their culture or who they are. In a way, credit to them. No, you're not going to change us. We'll change you, And this gets into, there is a massive migration issue going on in the UK. And that's one of the biggest things beneath all of this is the natives themselves have been watching this massive migration happening for a while. Their villages, their towns, their city centers are becoming more and more influenced by migration. And boy, sounds familiar, right? If you go to Texas right now, there seems to be a lot more influence of people who have come across the border illegally because open borders. Right? And we saw this in the EU a couple of years ago, a massive flood of migration where the nations in the EU were basically told, no, you're going to accept them.
Right.
You know, you saw it in Sweden, you saw it in Italy, you saw it in France, you saw it in the UK, you saw it in all of these, right? And so this is something where we have to realize there's a bigger play than just, oh, he was illegal and the far right hates this guy because they were mistaken. It's much more than that.
Right.
And of course, now the government, and this is something the U.S. needs to really pay attention to, the government has come out, and let's go to clip 4, because this is their Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, talking about it. Who, of course,
guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves.
Who do you think he's talking to? Is he talking to
Rioters?
the Muslims who are chasing down white men in the street and beating them? Is he talking to the massive flood of Muslims that are marching in the street? Is he talking to the far left protesters who are aligning with the Muslims? Or is he talking to the far right extremists?
He's talking to the far right extremists.
Exactly. So much so that they have actually, and I just saw this yesterday afternoon, right before I was about to leave, they arrested a white woman who was 55 years old because she shared misinformation online. She shared misinformation online. Now she's been arrested. Another man, who's 50s, early 60s, got 2 years in prison because he was at one of the protests at the front of the line where the police were, and he was yelling at the police. And I think what frustrates me is Americans go, well, that'll never happen here. I'm sorry, J6.
Yeah. Not only that, there's so much misinformation about that being shared still by CNN and all them guys.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But they're the ones who want to censor you.
Right.
They're the ones coming up with, well, what about stopping misinformation? Dude, okay, one of the big things about this censorship or whatever they're trying to do is I think it was George Washington said if basically the First Amendment's taken away, we're going to be like sheep led to the slaughter because we don't have a voice anymore at that point.
Right.
If you don't have a voice, if they can take away your First Amendment, which is under God giving you the freedom of conscience of voice, conscience of religion, all these things like the practice of your religion, if they can take that away, dude, the rest of that stuff can go because what do you need a gun for? You can't stand. Now you're getting to the physical aspect. If they're going to arrest you for your words, imagine if you have a gun.
Right. Do you, and I've thought about this with the First Amendment. Do you notice that the First Amendment goes religion, your conscience in your heart,
Right.
speech, you're speaking it out, freedom of press, you're conveying it to other people. Does it go grievance and then protest?
Yeah.
So grievance, your ability to actually petition the government, say, not just speak out the issue, but go to the government and say, I've got an issue that we have to redress. And then actual protest, action behind that disagreement. It actually covers that whole breadth of everything you can do in terms of when you, by your conscience, by your conviction, by your heart, are seeing something not right.
That's good, dude.
And so the whole breadth of it, it's not just, well, you can think it's wrong, but you better not. No, it's, you can think it's wrong. You can speak that it's wrong. You can organize that it's wrong. You can come to the government that it's wrong. And you can make your voices heard against the government that it's wrong.
You know, I was in the airport just recently. We went out to Iowa, right? Do you guys ever see those signs that say, if you see something, say something? Isn't it crazy? If you see something, say something. Until it comes to government.
Right. Yeah, don't say anything.
We can't petition the government anymore because now it's false information. If they can take away your speech and say that's misinformation and arrest you for it, how do you petition the government?
Right. And
how do you bring a grievance?
And that's, I get frustrated because I think we in America, we take the First Amendment for granted.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will look at it and go, well, I mean, we've got the First Amendment. We can say what we want. Boy, that's funny because we've got the whole Twitter files. with,
Oh my
with Matt
gosh.
Taibbi, where the government, it was not just one email, hey, can you, just kind of crush this whole COVID stuff? It was constant. And accounts that had 10, 15, 20 followers, they're like, nope, that's misinformation. Cut that, right? And it became...
Or shoot, man, even Epstein's log.
Yeah.
We're
going to crush that.
Yeah, laptops.
Or the
and,
Hunter laptop,
I mean,
Go
just there's so many conspiracies and so many things. Not even conspiracies. These are actually all true, right? How come they never prosecuted Hillary Clinton for smashing up freaking
the
servers?
BlackBerries and the servers and all that.
servers and deleted emails and when you say okay, like we're us, we're not like go Trump type of people. if he's the guy, he's the guy. But it's you look at what they got him for for him for just holding classified information. Yeah, we don't know. Daddy Bush, man, Bush Sr. was having classified CIA information for years. Right? Years. He would get briefings, still get briefings. And nobody even talks about that.
Yeah.
It's like because past presidents can do that.
Yeah.
They still have some kind of voice and say, who knows what Obama's been hiding?
I really believe he's pulling plenty of strings, I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother
That's
topic.
a whole rabbit trail there.
But we do have to go down and again, shout out and credit to Sargon of Akkad, who's Carl Benjamin, podcast of the Lotus Eaters. They had a really good take on this next area, which is what the newspapers and the government are doing in the UK, right? So we're going to go to slide number 4. We're skipping down to number 4. So what the newspapers, slide number one. So what the newspapers did is said,
30 protests.
okay, we're setting up courts against these far-right protesters. And then they said, there are 30 far-right protests planned, right? Convictions of many rioters to be finished this week. Police brace for 30 more far-right protests. Then go to slide 2. Then all of a sudden, it was 100 far-right protests. Oh, they're going to protest all over the cities. They're going to be everywhere. Then, go ahead to slide 3. Now all of a sudden they're showing each city where there's a credible threat. Boy, isn't that funny? So now, because you would think, okay, we don't want these protests to continue or to grow, why would we show whoever's far right where those protests are actually going to be? Unless you wanted a response. You wanted to foment a response. So then we go to slide 4, the newspapers. And what did the newspapers do after massive amounts of far left protesters were out there and there weren't a whole lot of far right protesters, a group of 10 over here and a group of 5 over there and that kind of thing? Do you notice how similar all of these look? It's the same picture, and it says United Britain standing together, marchers face down the thugs, thousands take to street to confront the far right. And mind you, this is a range of newspapers. This isn't just far left newspapers. This is across the gamut. Isn't it interesting? And I don't think we do enough work with the fact that in the U.S., it is fact that the CIA has worked with newspapers to craft narratives.
We'll talk about the political psyops. It's all psychological operation. You know what I mean? Everything about it is warping our minds, right? To hate one another, right? Why is it that they talk constantly of a far right but never a far left? You know what I mean? Where like there's this dominant far left that has pushed its agenda, propagated its agenda, says it's not religious, but if you don't bow down to it, there's a punishment for it, which is religious, bro, in nature.
Oh, it's a religion.
It is a religion. Yeah, it's like a forced thing. It's almost like a dogma in a sense, where there's a consequence not to submit, right? So submission is everything, and so it's so funny. These people will talk evil of submission when a wife wants to submit to her husband, but if you don't submit to a far left agenda, right, you're evil and you're wrong, and we can and again, this is all smacks of. Past dictators, fascism itself. But it's crazy because looking at this for what it is, you just got to say it, man. It's psyops. It's all psychological warfare, every bit of it, right? They can't get them with COVID, so let's mess with their minds. Why do you think the Bible talks continuously about renewing your mind?
Ooh.
Why? Why is it that we've pinned each other against each other? It's like the left, the left, the left. And here's Christ saying, love your enemies, go preach the gospel to them. Why do we do that? Like, I get it. There's an agenda. I'm not standing for it. I'm not allowing it, bro. There is a heaven and there is a hell, okay? And many people who, listen to me closely. If you do not turn from your wicked ways and serve the living God, there's only two choices here. There's two consequences, right? Heaven or eternal separation from God. That's it. But that's the truth we preach. That is the truth that Paul preached. That's the truth that the disciples preached, bled and died for. And what happens is we don't even look at this biblically anymore. We're seeing, like, if you can't see the psychological nature of this, I think that's why the Bible talks so much about renewing your mind. It doesn't say renew your heart. It says renew your mind. It doesn't say renew your actions. It says renew your mind, right? And so there's so much to be said about this in the psychology of it, that if your mind is not renewed daily by the word and in prayer, you're going to fall right into these traps and say, look how evil they are. And you know what they're saying to you? Look how evil they are. And no one's bringing order to chaos. No one's bringing order to this chaos. And Christ can. Mm-hmm. He can. Because he's the one who talked about tribulation you'll have in this world, but be good cheer, I've overcome it. I come to bring a sword. He goes, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. Why? Because if you can divide, right, the evil from the good, then you know what to discern and what to go after. We're not supposed to hide from the evil or only point out the evil. We're actually supposed to go change the evil. Right. We're supposed to go after souls of men, right?
So just as a capper on all of this, let's go ahead and do slide 5. Yeah, it was even admitted the whole far-right protests were a hoax. It was admitted. But, you know, they got their point across. Nick Lowell said, yes, the list was a hoax. But just look at the front pages of today's papers. An anti-racist message is being transmitted to millions of homes this morning. Mind you, Nick Lowell's is verified checkmark, and he's been fully on top of this whole thing on the left side of it. Yeah, it's a hoax, but we got it across. And honestly, that is...
It's like, dude... You got to think at some point when David said, Lord, why do the wicked prosper? I think it was Psalm 37. The wicked prosper, Lord. What is going on? Why do they do this? You know, what is the people, why do the heathen rage and people imagine a vain thing, the Bible says in Psalm 2? Why? And you think these guys sit up there and you think, how do you sleep at night, dude? How do you do this?
Right.
How is it that you can have no conscience to what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Like ours is reformation and transformation. Yours is death. That's what you want. You want people to be so pitted against each other to die. Revolutionaries don't create action. They create first mindset changes. Remember when John Adams wrote to Hezekiah Niles after Hezekiah Niles wrote to him? I don't know if you know the story. Hezekiah Niles writes to John Adams and he says, hey man, I'm supposed to write a book for our paper, but it's a future thing. He said, we want to give an admiring posterity a look at the times that just happened, basically. And Adams was like, are you talking about the American War? Because that started before the whole war. It was a religious sentiment change. It was in the hearts and the minds of the people that changed. So revolutions begin in the mind first. Mm-hmm. Why do you think they're changing your mind to be base? Greed and fear. Greed and fear. Greed and fear. It's constant.
It's that emotion of base fear. Right?
Yeah.
Fear is the emotion. Fear is the driver. Fear is the thing that moves people forward. It whips them into an emotional fervor. And that's a problem because once you're moved in an emotional state, you're unstable. When you're unstable, you're easy to sway, right?
Right.
Because at some point, you just want it all to stop.
Truth.
And what they're doing now is they are trying to crush any feeling of adversity within this whole situation. Right. That's why they're coming so hard against online posting. And the police even made a threat, and we can show this in a second. But the police even made a threat of, it won't just be people inside the UK. We're going to go after people outside the UK. Terrorism charges. So now, misinformation online, if you're spreading stuff that could incite something, we may charge you as a terrorist. They're trying to crush dissent. Just accept the narrative, move on with us, right? And to finish my point before we get to the sponsor, have you ever heard of the Trusted News Initiative? Most of us
Ooh.
probably haven't. Dude, slide 8. On the BBC website, it says, and I state, the Trusted News Initiative is a partnership founded by the BBC that includes organizations from around the globe, including AP, which has a massive effect on the American news, AFP, BBC, CBC, Radio Canada, European Broadcasting Union, Financial Times, Information Futures Lab, Google/YouTube, The Hindu, Nation Media Group, Meta, Microsoft, Thomson Reuters, Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, Twitter, Washington Post, Compass, Indonesia, Dawn Pakistan, Indian Express, NDTV India, ABC Australia, SBS Australia, NHK Japan. All of them are a part of this initiative. TNI members work together to build audience trust and to find solutions to tackle challenges of disinformation. By including media organizations and social media platforms, it is the only forum in the world of its kind designed to take on disinformation in real time. What we do: fast alert against the most harmful disinformation, discuss trends, media education and shared learnings.
Media education and shared learnings. Psychological, dude. Media training.
Engineering solutions.
Oh my gosh.
Mind you, this was set up during COVID, and they specify that they want to tackle disinformation. Funny. A lot of people will point out that all of the major media corporations, especially in the U.S., are owned by like 6 companies, right? And a lot of people point out, it gets even more consolidated than that. We've got to accept that. And this is why I think independent media is so important. I mean, you've watched journalists like Matt Taibbi get pressed by the government themselves. He was about to go before Congress. He had a congressional hearing and testify, and the IRS was knocking on his door at the same time.
That was so fast.
Funny how that works, right? Funny how that works. Oh, no problems or issues for years, and then right before you're about to go testify before Congress, hey, want to talk to you. And so you get this nasty mix between establishment media and government who are trying to shape a narrative and control the narrative. And this is why supporting independent media is so important, right? Whether you're Glenn Greenwald's, your Matt Taibbi's, even your Barry Weiss's, your independent shows on Rumble, or the ones that you unfortunately have to find on YouTube, or the podcasts. Like, it's important to seek out alternative media.
Right.
So you're not just receiving, hey, we're all unified against these crazy white right-wing extremist, far-right Nazi peoples, because that's the messaging.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine the Bible only being written by one person.
Sounds strangely like some other stuff floating out there.
Yeah.
Other religions.
All different witnesses and accounts, all of the same Savior.
Right. And it's great when you get many sources who can help create a consistent
A consensus.
truth, a consensus about the issue, right? But before we get any further into this,
if you don't want misinformation, but you want some good,
that's
wholesome
good.
content,
That's good.
we got a new sponsor, dude. This
We
is pretty
do.
cool.
Sherwood Kids. Now, all you homeschoolers especially, you gotta pay attention. We're
This is-
homeschoolers people.
Yeah, we are homeschooling people because we love to, what's the word? Enslave our children.
Yeah. Brainwash. Propagandize.
There's the far left right there. Holy moly.
Oh, they're doing it. They're creating Christians out of their kids.
And Sherwood Kids wants to give you something wholesome. So
Oh, man. Okay. So you guys are going to love this. And we mean this. We really do. I can guarantee you have struggled to find stuff that your kids can watch or read or listen to, right? We're bombarded by stuff. Everything that's produced these days is designed to be high stimulation. There are shows that used to be great that I don't allow my kids to watch anymore because they've turned to high stimulation. I won't call them out by name, but And it ends up getting kids glued to a screen, and they're there for a couple hours, and you ever notice your kids get done, and then all of a sudden they're just grumps, they're anxious. There's a reason for that. That stimulation is not great for them. Not only that, but of course, the media is pushing new agendas on kids. And so they're designing these shows to be as addictive as possible to get their messaging and values across. And if you're anything like us, you're kind of feeling overwhelmed with like, where can I just trust somebody that my kid can watch a half-hour show,
Please,
and I don't have to worry about it?
And you know they're not going to listen to smut.
Right. That is why we've got these new sponsors, Sherwood Kids. This is a new low stimulation platform that helps kids develop a love for reading and maintains their ability to enjoy life without screen dependency. Okay? Specifically designed to entertain kids for short periods
Can we
of
just
time.
ask who wants their kids off screen dependency, bro?
Dude.
Like, and for those of you who don't have that, Matt Walsh just came out with that.
Did he?
Have you watched this?
No.
He said they went away on vacation and they didn't have like access to anything. The TVs weren't working or whatever. He said after a couple days of complaining, all of a sudden they just found things to do. And he goes, get your kids off the screens.
Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy.
Crazy. So this is perfect when you want to let your kids have a little bit of screen time. Maybe you're preparing dinner. And the key is that it won't cause the same kind of reactions you get from your kids when you take the iPad or turn off the TV. Okay? With thousands of wholesome audiobooks, ebooks, read-along videos, Sherwood is home to the kind of stories we want shaping our kids. They're doing it so in a way that actually strengthens their imagination. So you can be sure there will not be any hidden woke messages, subversive messaging in the content that your kids are getting. So if you do not want your kids mindlessly watching shows and being discontent without a screen, then discover a better way at sherwoodkids.com. Use our code SELF. That's right. Self-Evident has made it. We have a code.
We have a code.
We've got a code.
And
you there's more.
You get half off their yearly subscription, which is normally $600.
Not just yearly.
Oh,
Lifetime.
lifetime. Sorry. It's a lifetime subscription. My bad.
No, it's all good. That's even better.
That's even better. So it's a yearly subscription of $600, but you get half off with our code. And so if you guys want to click on that code or put it in right there, it should be down on the lower third right there. You guys can get $300 off. And thank you so much because every sale, portions of that helps our ministry.
Helps us.
That's what we're doing. So we want to thank Sherwood Books, Sherwood Publishing, because of that. I think that's awesome what they do. I mean, books like Winnie the Pooh and different classical titles that Where the Red Fern Grows, all that stuff. Just stuff that was wholesome to us that actually taught us things. I mean, we're watching Little House on the Prairie again at our house, right? They're reading Lord Tennyson, all these different poets, and I'm like, I bet you our kids know who 50 Cent is, and all these rappers and stuff, but they don't know Lord Tennyson. They don't know. And I'm thinking, dude, I just got to get back into that culture because we used to read them poetry a lot. So getting them back into that. So this is awesome.
Yeah. Go to Sherwood Kids. There's movies, TV shows, books, audiobooks, all that stuff. Check them out. Remember, SELF at the checkout. Put in SELF for the discount code. You'll get half off. Put in SELF.
Selfish code.
Yeah. SELF. It's all about
Self-gratify.
self. All
Half
right.
off.
Let's go ahead and round this out. Okay.
Yo.
So this big issue, I think a lot of times people are like, oh, that's going on in a different country. We don't really have to worry about that. I want to ask you, what does it mean when we're watching a full surveillance state in real time? And that's what we're doing. We're watching surveillance state in real time where they are flat out arresting people for sharing stuff online. And we've used the argument, First Amendment, First Amendment, First Amendment. Our government will find ways around that pesky little First Amendment. And where they have to, they'll just break it. And then they'll force you to spend millions of dollars to try and fight them on it. Because they have a blank check. They use your tax dollars to prosecute or persecute you. And this is why it's so vital for us to understand where's our news coming from, where are our sources coming from, what's going on. And we tell you all the time, we at Self-Evident, we do our best to try and find what's really going on.
Right.
And we may not always get it. And that's why I put open invitations to people of, if you have something that contradicts what we were talking about, go ahead and send it to us. What I don't want is mainstream government established narrative. because I don't trust that.
That's right. That's right. And you'll notice too, and I just have to throw this in there, that we don't hit things right away. If you guys notice, we don't just come out with the latest and greatest. We're not the first ones to report on something, and there's a reason for that, because there's still so much information that has not been said about that very thing.
Right.
So we typically wait 5 to 7 days before we even post anything about that thing, because we don't want to have to retract statements and be like everybody else where you have to be first instead of truthful. So that's why we do this. It takes a while for us to go, but there's a reason for everything we do, because we don't want to be those kind of people. We want to have a good, solid wraparound answers to the problems that are going on in the world. If all we're doing is alarming you to what's going on in the world, that does nothing for you except piss you off or make you sad or angry or frustrated or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not good.
And I want to round this out as a conversation piece between you and me. I don't typically get into the whole global agenda stuff, because at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, what can I actually do, right? But at the same time, it is something of, okay, what's really going on here? And I do firmly believe that there is a global initiative, a global agenda towards all of this, especially the whole migration stuff. Isn't it funny that the U.S. is doing exactly what Europe has been doing?
It's true.
You know, they've been pushing that stuff for years. We push it in the U.S., and there's a real motive behind it.
Right.
I was on the International Monetary Fund website, and they had an article extolling the virtues of mass migration. It was like, no, it's got to be a massive migration. And they're trying to make arguments of like, well, it'll stabilize populations, and it's an economic boon for countries, and you know, corporations love it, and so we just have to figure out how to do it. It's like, they're telling you.
It's like, dude, that's so stupid. We just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
But keep letting the illegal thing happen before we regulate it.
Right.
Does this sound crazy to anybody?
Isn't it funny?
Dude, well, we have to pass it before we could see what's in it.
Oh my gosh. That was probably kind of the culmination of like, my government is stupid.
We do not care.
Like, the government really doesn't care. When Nancy Pelosi can look at you with a straight face, a straight modified face, and tell you, well, we have to pass it to know what's in it. Boy, that seems completely opposite of what we should do with this. Maybe we should figure out what's in it before we pass it. But they know they don't have to explain anything to you. And to me, it's kind of like all the infighting and the strategy and all of that, it's just show.
It's actually how they know they got you.
Yeah.
That's how they know they won over you. They beat you.
Yeah, they really do kind of beat you into submission. And I think one of the things that drives us is we want you to understand what's going on, but we don't want you to lose hope. Right?
That's what makes this so difficult, is having the mindset to tell you there are things going on, but the Bible says to be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks of the hope that's within you.
Mm-hmm.
How do I give an answer if all I'm doing is alerting you?
Right.
Like, what does that do?
And that's what a lot of people fall into, is just tell me about all the problems and don't give me a solution.
And I think too, like, we have to start saying, like, we've done this before, but we're going to do another day of prayer and fasting. I think we should spend the next month maybe really talking about how to fast and pray, not just for our nation, but for, and not even just the elections. I think that's a given, but our local elections, our local. I mean, read Jeremiah 29 when he says, "Seek the prosperity of your city."
Yeah.
For when it prospers, you begin to prosper. That was when they were in exile. And so, like, when you look at that stuff, it's like, what is the answer? A lot of it is the gospel, but people, like, it's like they don't want that's easy. That's this. That doesn't change right now in the politics and the money situation. It's like, some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but I will trust in the name of the living God. Like, you honestly think that the economy is the sign of how the gospel should be preached? Like, as long as our money's good, then the gospel can be preached.
Right.
Not when it's bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think about that boy with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, right? His lunch. And God's like, Christ is like, I'm gonna go feed these people. I'm gonna take his lunch. You imagine that kid was like, hey man, that's my lunch, dog. But you think it wasn't a perfect scenario for Christ to feed the 5,000. They had nothing. They didn't have anything purchased or anything.
Right.
And the Lord said, no, I'm gonna go feed them and preach the gospel, preach to them, right?
Yeah.
The Savior. So we almost are like, and when this is all fixed, yeah, then we can focus on the gospel. When this is all fixed, then we can love our neighbor. When the liberals turn to our side, then we can love them.
Mm-hmm.
That's dangerous, dude. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at these protests, and it's like, again, you just said it earlier. You actually said it 2 or 3 times. America needs to watch this. Because, dude, if you think about it, Europe's kind of been on this psychological weird
They're
training of the
falling down
mind,
a
bro.
rabbit hole, man.
But they do it so often.
yeah. And we follow
It's like
suit.
cyclical, yeah.
And I think that's what scares me is we follow suit on all of this, and that's an issue because when we
And that's on us, dude.
it really is. And you look at the general populace, and it's like, guys, do you not see what they're doing? You know, and I think what concerns me is the UK. How far gone are they in this whole stuff?
How far?
And the question is, how far gone are we in all of this stuff? Like when the next crisis pops off. Now we are a much bigger country. The UK, it takes about 15 hours to go from bottom to top. So they're a much smaller country than we are. So it's much more concentrated of stuff that's going to happen and that kind of thing. So it takes more effort in America. However, how quickly before another crisis pops off and everybody falls in line again?
That's right.
And COVID was a problem, and it also showed some good stuff in people waking up. But it's like, man, they won't necessarily come at you with the same thing. They'll switch it up on you. Are you ready for that? You know, and we watched it with the George Floyd riots. You know, everybody forgets that on May 29th, 2020, they tried to burn a church down. They tried to raid the White House. Trump ended up in a bunker, and dozens of police officers and Secret Service were injured in protests, riots. Everybody forgets, but we all remember J6. All we ever talk about is J6, right? We don't talk about that stuff. We don't talk about the Summer of Love. We don't talk about any of that because it gets memory hold. So then we as a populace, we go, oh, well, you know. And I bet 99% of you didn't even know May 29th. Didn't even remember. Didn't catalog.
I didn't
right?
until you said it. That's
Right.
for sure.
Because we don't. The newspapers were so good at memory holding this thing. And if you remember, what they said to Trump was, "That coward ran for the bunker. What a coward, man! He didn't stay. He was scared." Oh, I'm sorry. Trying to burn down a historic church, trying to break into the White House. Like, I mean, that seems like insurrection to me. But man, we won't have that conversation.
And even then, it's like if there was legitimacy to the protest or whatever, we talk about the peaceful side of protest or whatever it is, whatever have you. You just said it. I was with a bunch of kids in Iowa, and these were kids who don't have social media. A lot of these kids, right? And I said, I kind of I'm gonna just throw it at them, right? I said, I threw this quote out there. How many of you guys have heard of this before? Separation of church and everybody said state. I was like, that's crazy, man. You all know that statement. How do you guys know that statement? Nobody could ever really tell me. It's just been rehearsed so much. I was like, does anyone know what John 3:18 says? Only one kid.
Wow.
One kid recited it too. I was like, dang.
That's
right?
pretty cool.
Those who don't believe are condemned already, right? Because we all know John 3:16. That's rehearsed a lot. But what about John 3:18 and 17, right? So like, I was thinking how much that psychological, that constant play of the same thing over and over. These kids know more about Jan 6th than they do more about anything else in government because of the constant push of the narrative.
Yeah.
So in other words, I think a lot of our adults need to shut the TVs off, bro.
Please.
Because, dude, this stuff is crazy. And you're right about alternative sources. I even think there's like a health and a wisdom to, hey, let me check out Zero Hedge. Let me check out, what are the other ones that we do?
So I'll do Zero Hedge. I'll do New York Post.
Okay.
They're not perfect, but they're not bad. I'll do SCNR. I'll do the Post Millennial. Those are kind of my conservative side of things. If I'm looking for like the liberal side of things, I'll go right to
the
liberal
Atlantic
source.
and-
yeah, that kind of thing. And then, if it's like independent journalism, you've got Glenn Greenwald, you've got Jonathan Turley, you've got Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss is actually pretty good. And then I like commentator shows because I can get kind of a feel. So, I mean, Lotus Eaters I'll watch if I'm looking for like Europe, UK type stuff. Tim Cass, they usually have pretty good stuff. And
Sarhat Avakad.
Sargon of Akkad.
Sargon,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sarhat.
And so like this type of stuff, it's good to get a breadth of, hey, what are they saying? Now, you can still fall into an echo chamber, but guess what? No matter what, there's some type of bias to what you're paying attention to. So if you can kind of counteract it and find a bit of the other side just to figure out, okay, what's the other side saying?
But the point of finding out information is not to be in an echo chamber. The point of information is, what can I do about this, Lord?
Right.
What is it that you want me to do? Do you want me to pray? Do you want me to act? What do you want me to do? It's not to feed your mind with more information and get you angry. It's actually to change you. That's the hope anyway, right?
Right.
And so we're just one of those sites as well. You won't hear us being pulled by Republicans, Democrats, the media. That's not what we're doing. And I think that's where it makes it so different is when we see something, we're actually going to act on it and do our best to go attack it. That's why going national years ago was important to us. You know what I mean? Whatever it takes, we're going to go out to the nation. And we did it. We did it. We stood our ground. We're like, we're going to do this with no money. And we did it, and God has since blessed the ministry. That's why you saw the announcement yesterday. We're literally taking this thing on saying, Lord, even when it's darkest, we've always preached this. Years, and almost 9 years now. I've preached this since the beginning. To me, darkness brings hope. I see hope on the other side of darkness, right? I don't see darkness as a sign that the enemy's winning. I see darkness as a sign of the enemy is losing, because now we're starting to see it by the Holy Spirit. Now what can we do about this? You know what I mean? How can we enact our gifts? The Bible says to covet earnestly the spiritual gifts. For what? To edify, to strengthen, to correct, to rebuke, to preach. When the disciples were baptized in the Spirit in Acts, they weren't baptized to do miracles. That happened, but it was to preach the gospel with boldness. So we have a message to proclaim. Jesus, it was even said of Jesus, I'm getting kind of preachy right now, but even Jesus was, what was it? They took note that they'd been with Jesus, but he said that even he spoke with authority, not as the scribes. Not as the scribes did, not as the Pharisees. It wasn't just head knowledge.
They wondered about it. They're like, who is this man who speaks with authority?
With authority, and that it wasn't a head knowledge. It was totally from the heart, totally from Christ, totally from God, influenced by the Holy Spirit, inspired by the Holy Spirit. That's why we do this. It's not just to, again, you can come and watch and be like, oh, they're talking about that. Look, listen, we're not going to bring the same perspective everybody else does all the time.
Right.
And there's perspectives we might bring that are the same, right? But you're going to see, like, we weave scripture in it so much because it's like, Lord, what is a biblical answer to all this? What can we as Christians do? Why is it that instead of loving our neighbor, we almost hate our neighbor by not telling them the truth? What is that?
The whole truth.
Yeah, the entire truth of the gospel. There's so much to this. And once you have been saved and redeemed and you're on your sanctification path, then what? Then what? What do you do with that, right? Mm-hmm. I saw this dude with a shirt yesterday. I wish I could remember, but it said something like this: save one, teach one. Save one, train them up, and then they teach another, right? It's just a constant cycle of discipleship,
that.
right? And it's if we're not in the business of that, what are we doing? Has anyone just thought about stepping out of their comfort zone and just witnessing to somebody? Just step out of your comfort zone. No. I know people hate this stuff. It's like, oh, here we go. I get it all the time. That's your answer to everything. Yeah. That's Christ's answer to everything.
Right.
In the midst of a messed up Roman government, what was he doing? Setting the captives free. In the midst of a messed up Roman government, dude, he was proclaiming, no, the King of Heaven is here, dude. Like, I'm right here, and I'm about to die for you and resurrect for you. And in the midst of even more Roman chaos, Paul comes on the scene. Peter starts doing his ministry. Timothy, all these dudes were birthed out of a messed up government. Messed up situation. Nothing was working for them. Persecution of Christians was real, right? We're not seeing that now. And most of us are like, oh, here we go, the gospel. That's how they changed everything. That's how the West was born, was what the gospel promulgating the truth. Look at all the old charters of the past in the 1600s. They came here to preach the gospel. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, that's the answer, is taking souls with us. If this ship is going down like the Titanic, can I read something fast?
Sure.
I'm going to do it anyway. But I gotta show you this, dude. Someone, this was so cool. In 1912, John Harper, a 39-year-old evangelist, was on the Titanic to travel to the Moody Church in Chicago. He said the journey took an unexpected turn. The ship was struck. As chaos ensued, John managed to get his 6-year-old daughter to a lifeboat. Instead of boarding with her, he turned back into the fray. He ran person to person to share the gospel, offering them the last chance to know Christ. As water rose, he was heard shouting, "Women, children, and the unsaved onto the lifeboats." He cried out for the unsaved to be on the lifeboats because he wanted a chance to preach to them, right? The ship tilted. The water began to flood its decks. His resolve didn't waver. He knew the time was running out, but he was determined to save as many souls as possible. He was eventually plunged into the frigid water, now kept afloat by a life jacket. He swam towards a man who was clinging to the debris from the ship. John asked, "Are you saved?" The man replied, "No, I'm not saved." In an act of incredible selflessness, John took off his life coat and thrust it onto the man's hands. He said, "You need this more than I do. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you'll be saved from eternal damnation." Moments later, the waters claimed John. He died. And the man who was buoyed by his life jacket was rescued by a lifeboat. 4 years later, at a reunion of the Titanic survivors in Ontario, Canada, the man stood before a crowd. He recounted that night, changed his life, and he stated, "I am John Harper's last convert."
Wow.
When a ship is going down,
Right.
John Harper, bro, that's awesome. And if that doesn't move you, I don't know what will. This stuff here, we've seen this in the past. Guys, just do history digging. Just do some history digging. Dude, the Boston Tea Party was in response to a bad government. This is nothing new, right? And history's always written by those who want, what is it? History's written by those who, George Orwell said, those who can control the past control the present. Right? So whatever side of history you're on, you may think the founders are crazy. John MacArthur does. He's like they were sinful what they did, right? But then he stood against the government.
Yeah,
when his church
exactly.
was shut down.
But
Crazy.
I won't go down that road.
Right. But then you have the left, the crazy left, who's like the founders were all slave owners and this country's nasty and blah blah blah. So then why do you want to stay here so bad and change it the way you want to if it's so bad? And you have the freedom to do it with speech.
And invite everybody here.
Oh, dude.
Into a racist, horrible, xenophobic nation.
Yeah, dude. This is unbelievable. So to me, it's this. Him and I talk about this a lot. He's always like, "Man, I really want to cover this." It's like, yeah, let's cover that. And in my heart, I'm like, Lord, what do you want us to say about it, though? You know what I mean? Because like we can talk about this and all the riots, and I'm thinking, dude, the psychological warfare is flipping real.
And that's the stuff that always grabs me is what's the greater thing going on? Because God himself said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." And when we get swept up into these massive narratives, it becomes an issue because we get sidetracked. We get moved by the waves, right? So it's good to understand, okay, what's the motive behind all of this? Because Satan is a deceiver. He is a liar. And I think what frustrates me is when, especially we as Christians, we get swept into the lie and we just buy it because the lie tastes good to us. It feels good to us, and I'm just thinking about something I posted on my personal page yesterday that, you and I were talking about. It is like these crickets, because we want to buy the lie. The lie is comfortable. The lie it wraps us up, and the lie makes us feel good. I don't know how many times we will say to each other, Satan comes as an angel of light. But then immediately we walk out the door and we think, well, Satan's only going to come with destruction and evil and chaos and hatred. It's like he comes as an angel of light. He's going to try to make you feel good. He's going to try to pull one over on you. He will be the one that's feeding the orphans. And you go, oh, that's so nice. That's so great of him, right? There's nothing in Satan's rule book that says he can't help people. We think The only thing he'll do is destroy people flat out, and so we can see him. As long as he's got a pitchfork and horns and a tail, there's Satan. He comes as an angel of
He's
light.
disguised, dude.
He's going to deceive masses because people are going to go, oh, yeah, he's for us. And so I watch it, and especially with Christians, it's like, be careful. Be careful. The lie tastes good. The lie feels good. The lie comforts you. The lie will keep you away from discomfort and tension
Right.
and sacrifice an issue. And so I watch situations like this, and it's like, where's the lie? Where's the misdirection going on? You know, so whether it's the UK stuff, whether it's stuff going on here with COVID, whether whatever it is, it's like the reason we cover this type of stuff is like, okay, where's the misdirection? Where's the lie?
Where are you going? Yeah.
Where's this going?
Where's this going?
Because history is filled with, oh, well, if we put this in front of people, they'll run towards that. And then I've got them on the backside. And that's how it happens. It's how it happens. Yeah. That's my piece. So.
You going to end it? You were like on a roll there. I thought you were going to end it.
That is my end. Don't buy the lie, right? Like, don't buy the lie. Look for the lie. Look for the misdirection. Because we know the truth. The problem is we cover over the truth with the lies that feel good.
I agree. Guys, so listen, I know we covered pieces of this, and we do our best to cover as much as we can. Look forward to more podcasting here in the future. We're going to do more and more. We would eventually like to go daily with the show if we can, if possible. You're just going to see a lot more live videos, a lot of whole different unique ways to reach. If you guys have kids on Twitch and that, we're looking into those kind of platforms as well to reach those kids, because there's a lot of kids on streamer. They stream the games and everything. So we want to be a voice out there. So look out for that as well. But guys, go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can help support us, sponsor us, get some really cool merch. Like I got, we're always repping our shirts and doing something. You got a Maca shirt on, which was, it's probably one of our best selling shirts. Anywho's, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, share this video with a friend. If you can, set some people free, because it's not about knowing more. It's about doing. It's about being ready for and set for the gospel. So we love you guys. We'll talk to you Monday.
All right. Love you guys.